Welcome back, one and all, to another Torch News Roundup, number 76. That's the spirit. I wish I had 76 trombones to sort of play us in here, but couldn't afford it, unfortunately, on the salary I'm getting from YouTube. But I digress. So, welcome into the show. How are you? How have you been? I haven't seen you in 2 whole days. Saturday, of course, rounding up the week in comic book television, as I like to say, as we call the show. The only way to spend your Saturday. Um, Probably not gonna be a long show tonight because there really wasn't a wealth of, uh, stories that I really wanted to cover. There's a handful. We're gonna take an in-depth, comprehensive look at the history of the Flashpoint film that's been, oh, lamented, that it's not being produced for the past 5 years. I don't know what's going on with that project. The only thing more snake bitten than that project is the Gambit film that Fox wants to make still. Languishing, I think that's the word I was looking for, languishing somewhere in development hell. All right, so first up, first order of business, I got to congratulate my boys, the Patriots, for winning the AFC Championship over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jaguars are a fine team. They'll be back. Don't worry about them. But 6 rings, 6 Super Bowl rings on the hands of the greatest of all time, Tom Brady. We don't get ahead of ourselves, like I said, here in New England. We don't get ahead of ourselves. We're going to take it one game at a time. We still got in Minnesota. Speaking of Minnesota, throw the towel. That was a terrible game. They were just outmatched from the beginning against Philadelphia. But you know, I had the Vikings in that game. I thought they probably would win, but why I'm not making the big money as a casino gambler. So that's just a small little update on the football situation. I split the games then 1-1. We'll take a look at that next week on the weekend when we take a look at the Pro Bowl and how that situation shakes out. We've got Raw 25 tonight. If you're at all interested in wrestling, the 25th anniversary of the beginning of Raw will be in tonight's show. I ain't really got much to say about it. I'm not a big fan of the Attitude Era. In fact, that's why I left wrestling. I couldn't get with it even as a teenager. Appealed to me. I never liked Stone Cold Steve. Um, I don't know, The Rock was all right, but by that time I was completely out of it. So he didn't do enough to entice me to come back. And then the early days of John Cena at the tail end of that Attitude Era. Um, so watching like flashbacks or whatever you want to say, clip show that they had last week of the Attitude Era. It's like stirred the hearts of many wrestling fans with nostalgia, but it didn't do nothing for me because I pretty much got out of wrestling just before that. It wasn't interesting me anymore when they started getting too mean spirited, too adult oriented in what they were doing. Bra and panty matches and whatever. I mean, it didn't really feel like something that I could get behind, and I kind of left wrestling. But in recent years, last couple of years after Roddy Piper's passing, especially, I got nostalgic to see how wrestling was in this day and age. And of course, it's more tame now. It's a little bit more respectable, if you want to call it that. I mean, wrestling has always been probably considered a bit trashy, but it's kids. And as we move on in now to our 47th live edition of Johnny Torch Live, that's kind of a good segue here because first topic we're going to look at is the new Suicide Squad 2 trailer that just came out recently. I was actually a pretty big fan of the original animated feature, and I was wondering why didn't they put out a sequel to that since it was so good, because not too many of their direct to video very good in recent times. Um I think it's only when a live action Suicide Squad movie is due to come out will they put out an animated one. So the trailer didn't show a whole lot, I don't think. I don't think it even gave us a release date. I'm not sure when this is going to come out, but very curiously, where it has the MMA ratings, let me take a look at it. Strong bloody violence throughout, you can kind of expect that. Sexual content, which I don't really like that. Brief graphic nudity. That's an even stronger place they went than last time. Now, I wasn't too crazy about last time when they basically had Deadshot and Harley Quinn fooling around. I thought not only was that a little bit too raunchy for raunchy's sake, but I really never felt that Harley would betray, so to speak, Mr. J in that fashion. I always seen her as a one woman man. And when they try to, branch out and do things like this with Harley and give her, a side piece, in other words, I don't really feel it fits with the character. Not in the original conception of the character anyway, from the Batman the Animated Series. That was a Harley that was completely loyal to the Joker with Poison Ivy and stuff. But I personally never seen them as romantic relationships, or a romantic relationship. Others probably tried to read into it more than what I felt was there in the content of the show. Well, let's see. There's also some drug material. I don't know what that's going to be about, but all right. So it looks like we have in the picture here we have Copperhead and Bronze Tiger joining the team. The rest of the team was from the original movie. Captain Boomerang, Killer Frost, Harley Quinn, and Deadshot. I don't know a whole lot about Copperhead. He was in the Justice League Unlimited show. Uh, don't remember much about him. Bronze Tiger was in Arrow as sort of a, well, I don't want to say Wolverine, but he had claws and basically could fight pretty well. So I imagine he's sort of like, I don't want to say he's cannon fodder here, but with no real superpowers to speak of, I don't think that he's probably gonna survive this whole film. But who knows? Probably the same with Copperhead. Apparently, they're going after Vandal Savage, who is probably at this point the most overused villain in the DC universe. Um, Used to be Darkseid. I think maybe now Vandal Savage is giving him a run for his money. I was so tired of seeing Darkseid in every episode of Superman the Animated Series. I probably have said that before, but I think they really overused him in that series. And then in a lot of direct-to-video films, they had Darkseid, and fact that he felt like he was being overused for a time. Uh, they don't have her in this picture, but Amanda Waller looks skinnier here. I thought they used the heavy model in the first film, so if they're not that model, this will be interesting to explain away how she lost so much weight. Weight loss. Uh, so yeah, that's about it. I mean, it looks like there's some cool action. There is that Siren Woman character. I'm not sure what her name was. I can't remember. She was even in Supergirl. I believe in the Flash crossover. With some really great makeup. Which that reminds me, why have they brought that character back? I believe uh what's that girl's name? Lightning Girl there. That's she's a Superman baddie from the animated series. She's coming back this week, I think, on Supergirl, but there's still no Banshee. I think that's her name. There's still no sign of Banshee. And I actually liked that character because it was a little something to tie Win into the story, because Win has been completely abused context in Supergirl this season. But I guess we're digressing. But Banshee, yeah, is in the trailer. I think there was another character too that I noticed. I don't remember right now, but a lot of, like I said, there's some action, car chase. It looks like, it looks like it's going to be fun. It looks like it's going to be enjoyable. Sign if Batman's going to be in this one, because they sold it last time on it being quote unquote Batman's on Arkham. In this case, I don't think they're even giving the pretense that Batman's in it. They're selling it solely on Suicide Squad. So yeah, interesting. I'm gonna check it out. I hope it'll be good. Like I said, I'm not really in. I've been saying this all along. I'm not really into uh, comic book products that don't appeal to the whole family, because I believe that you know comic book characters and stuff should be for the whole family. Now you have some exceptions. I mean, there might be a few places where you could do like maybe the R-rated character Obviously, Punisher might be one of them. There were a few fringe ones. I mean, other ones that are popular, like Wolverine and Deadpool, I honestly don't think they need to be R-rated. Stuff like maybe Blade, maybe Punisher, stuff like that would probably be more suited for R-rated material. But most of these other characters, I think, really would be better suited for viewing. I mean, I don't particularly believe in kiddie cartoons, just like I don't believe in adult cartoons. You know what I mean? I don't believe that you have to have one or the other. Like Wow, or whatever that show was that they recently did, which was like 15-minute skits for kids. I don't think that's really what kids need. Kids just need stuff like Batman animated series, which it can appeal to an adult and it can appeal to a child. I mean, there was nothing really in it that was, you know, overly detrimental to a kid's, psyche. And in the same way, it wasn't overboard, but it wasn't kiddyish. It wasn't too, dumbed down. It wasn't dumbed down at all. So that's what I would hope that they would shoot for, is that middle ground where it's not something going to cover your kid's eyes, but at the same time, it's going to carry the interest of an adult. It's going to carry the attention span of an adult and not make you feel like, oh, gee, this is. All right, so we'll move on now. But yeah, Suicide Squad Hell to Pay. Not to be confused with the Uncle Owen life story, Hell to Pay. My life on a Tatooine moisture farm. But yeah, this one is Suicide Squad. Okay, so let's take a look now at what we've got left on the agenda. Let's save the Flash story for last because closing story. All right, we have who's to me fan of television, particularly 80s television. The Let's see. The Macgyver television show has already had Jack Dalton actor Bruce McGill as a completely different character, of course. And now it has been revealed that Michael Day Barr is joining MacGyver as Murdoc. Because, as you remember, David Del Masterson plays Murdoc on the show, but he did reveal on the show that he took the name from another Murdoc. And apparently, the original Murdoc, played by Michael Day Barr in the original MacGyver series, is going to be returning in that role. Now, my only hope is that the same thing I felt for Bruce McGill coming back on the show, that they just let him play the original character. Let him play the character the way he wants to play him. Don't reboot the character. Sort of what they did with Mark Hamill on Ash, where it was a different trickster, but he still played the trickster as if it was the trickster in later years. And so what I'm trying to say is I think that's what I want to see out of Michael Day Barr's Murdoc in this show. Just play it as if this was Murdoc from the original series, but he's older. But we understand that he's not in character because this is a different continuity and so forth. But let him play the original Murdoc. And it would be really great if, he could be sharing the screen with Richard Dean Anderson. The problem with that is, and I even tweeted that to him, and Michael Day Barr is actually a really cool guy in real life, in case you don't know, and he actually liked my tweet that it would be great to see them both together on screen at the same time. And Richard Dean Anderson, however, I don't believe is a big fan of the show. Now, there's always the case of you wave enough money at somebody and they become very interested. I think that's why they've been hedging their bets here, the producers of the show, by trying to forestall the story along until they can get Richard Dean Anderson on board. Uh, I was watching a couple of convention appearances of Richard Dean Anderson this past weekend, and one of the questions he got was, has he seen the show? And he said he doesn't like the show. And he has valid reasons, I have to admit. Show, I I agree very much with what his objections were. First, he said that they don't spend enough time working out the MacGyverisms. You basically just see him walk in, to quote Richard Dean Anderson, you see him walk in with a rubber band, and you don't really get the concept of what he's doing to make, this, bomb or whatever it is. And the second thing he mentions is that he didn't like the fact that it's basically a cop show with MacGyver as the title. And that's very true because in the original MacGyver, MacGyver was against the use of guns. And it wasn't just that he wouldn't use a gun, he pretty much disliked the use of guns, period. And I've always been against this idea that MacGyver would be all right with Jack Dalton running around with a gun. That is like splitting two genres. You have the A Team, where it was a lot of gunplay and it was fun because gunplay is fun as long as nobody's getting killed, and nobody got killed on the A Team. That was a source of you know humor to some extent. You know, cars would turn over after being shot and blown up, but then again, the guy would come out that was the driver with his hair mussed up and managed to survive amazingly. And MacGyver was different. It was a little more real life stakes where he wouldn't use a firearm, and he uh, didn't want others to use a firearm too, because he was actually committed to the bit. You know what I mean? He was committed to the concept that firearms are bad and that he, could find a different solution. Basically, like Batman, really. I mean, that's why I went and see Batman being okay using a gun in a lot of these movies, like Justice League and all these other movies where he's using firearms and stuff to some extent. Batman wouldn't have a gun around him, neither would MacGyver, and MacGyver is like allowing, so to speak, Jack Dalton to have a firearm at all times. So I understand his complaints, but if we're waiting for the perfect thing to come, all these shows, MacGyver, A Team, they're all lightning in a bottle. You're never going to recapture that, and take a role on the show just on principle like that would probably be self-serving. I dare say. But, I admire his, uh, tenacity to, stick by his guns and say, what he truly thinks. Well, originally did with The Last Jedi. But you gotta stick to your guns, and if that means that he's not gonna appear on the show, I guess so be it, but, it is disappointing if he isn't, uh, going to be on the show. But, I have no, air date for this episode, but, it's probably coming up in the near future, and I am really looking forward to seeing it because Bart is a fantastic actor, and he's also a good musician and singer. A lot of people don't know that about him; just remember him as the actor for Murdoc. But you have to remember that he's got that great voice, and I don't know why he hasn't done too much voiceover work. At least not that I'm aware of. Certainly not to the extent of like Mark Hamill, like I said, where Mark Hamill has done so many voiceover projects. He's everywhere. But uh, Michael Day Barr was in Batman the Animated Series, and I thought that was sort of like the beginning of a career for him in voiceover work. But I don't notice him in too many things. That's something to consider. All right, so we move on yet again, and here we're going to take a look at. There's been an increasing rumor here that was apparently started, and I don't know how long. I stopped watching it even when John Campia was still on the show, but apparently John Schnepp has sent out a rumor here, and I'm going to read it verbatim. What I've got here, Schnepp is claiming that Tom Holland will be in the Venom movie as Peter Parker. He says, I'm not saying Spider-Man is in the film. When I say Tom Holland Spider-Man is in the film, Parker is in the film. So I don't really know where they could put Peter Parker in a story like this. I imagine that it's only going to be a cameo, if anything. I don't really think this makes any sense whatsoever. I believe it has been reported that Tom Holland has been on set. So, I mean, we can't really just call this one out as bogus. But at the same time, if it's just some kind of walk-on role, because remember, this Venom movie is also supposed to be rated R. It's supposed to be a lot of violence, and it's supposed to be kind of its own thing. Although they're saying there's loose ties to, the Tom Holland Spider-Man, the Spider-Man that's currently active in the MCU. Now, director Matthew Tolmec had addressed this issue, and he said, "We are making a Venom movie, is all I'm going to tell you. We are making a Venom movie starring Tom Hardy." Beast. So he's neither confirming or denying at this point that Tom Holland is going to be in the film. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you want to see Tom Holland make a walk-on cameo as Peter Parker in the Venom movie? Or do you just want to forget about continuity and, crossover ties for this film and just treat it as, a separate story that may or may not eventually, you know, take place in the MCU? I think the jury's still out on whether this is really going to take place in the MCU. That's the problem. If they had gone all in for it and said, "Well, this definitely is part of the MCU," would be one thing, but we haven't really gotten that from them. We've gotten basically a lot of dancing around by Kevin Feige and Amy Pascal, who's the producers, and Spider-Man: Homecoming, as to whether this is really going to be part of the MCU. We'll just have to wait and see. All right. So next up, we've got some casting news for Shazam picture, as they say, or at least as they used to say in the old days. That was pretty cool when they used to say it. Ron Cephas Jones, Shazam. Uh, with this cat, but Bobby Fish in Marvel's Luke Cage, one of Pop's friends at the barber shop. And saying that now, yeah, he does look a little more familiar, but yeah, this is another case of where they kind of race changed a character, and if you know my position on race changing, I don't like race changing characters. Although it looks like from this image here, they already race changed him in the comics. So I don't know. It's one of those things where, as long as the wizard's an old dude, is not really the biggest deal. But I just was used to seeing him look like Moses in the comics, where he just comes out with a big long beard and the long white hair, and I don't know. And maybe this is the Black Moses. I don't know. Maybe he'll look like Moses still. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to think. But let me know in the comments below what you think about Ron Cephas Jones playing the Wizard Shazam. And we also have some more news here in the Shazam world picture. This is confirmation, because we knew pretty much all along that was going to be playing a villain in this film. It has been confirmed to be Dr. Silvana. And he says here, and I quote, censored, called Dr. Silvana. They're always the best characters to play, the most fun. Green Lantern, which I thought was a rather good film. Sidebar, I think so too. A lot of people didn't like it. I still stay pretty firmly that I like the movie. I think that the villains, I would have preferred if Sinestro turned evil in that film. Hector Hammond was the worst. But anyway, I digress. But Green Lantern, didn't do what they wanted, so I feel like I've got unfinished business in the DC world. I played a pretty evil character in that, and he was meant to get even worse in the second one. But that never happened. But I think I'm going to get the chance to do that in Shazam. I hope so. I've been training like a madman. I'm about to go over and see the stunt guys. I've been trying all these harnesses on, and I think I'm going to be doing lots of flying around and firing electricity out of my hands. Now, that's a very different incarnation of Dr. Silvana that I remember in the comics, where he was just a small little diminutive guy with glasses on and sort of an egg-shaped head. I guess in the comics, things, of course, have changed as well, and he's become this, powerhouse where he can go and fly and shoot laser beams out of his hands. I'm not too familiar with that, but hey, more power to you if you can make it more exciting. I still lament that he wasn't Sinestro as a villain in the Green Lantern sequel. Apparently, he still does too, Mark Strong, and I just hope for the best for him in this role. But more importantly, I hope they'll get somebody play just as convincing as Sinestro in the upcoming Green Lantern Corps film, because he really played Sinestro down pat as the perfect incarnation of the comic book version. All right, so let me know what you think about Dr. Silvana as played by Mark Strong. All right, we've got some more news here. The DC Universe. Now, we've been going pretty much on about the situation with Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn and how many movies she's actually going to make as Harley Quinn. There are so many on the table. One of them now is supposedly being taken off the table. Are retooling the Gotham City Sirens movie, apparently, into a Birds of Prey movie. Apparently, Margot Robbie's okay with this. She's a fan of the Birds of Prey concept. Uh, the Transformers spin-off Bumblebee writer and is writing a script for Birds of Prey. Apparently, this will star Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn, but we don't know who else is going to be in the film, let alone who's going to be cast as these characters. Some are saying this might be the debut of Batgirl before she gets her own solo film. As you can see on the screen here, the Poison Ivy apparently would probably be a villain. Huntress and Black Canary, of course, are main members of the Birds of Prey. Uh, again, this is a good idea to me. I don't know how this is so very different from Gotham City Sirens. I guess Gotham City Sirens is more focused on the villains, and in this case, they'd be focused more on the heroes. And of course, we've already had Harley Quinn, the solo movie in the works. That's what Margot Robbie is supposedly producing that one. I don't know if that has anything to do with this one because Margot Robbie only said it's about Harley Quinn and her friends. So I don't know. And also, we've got the Joker and Harley Quinn movie, which in this report, it says the Joker versus Harley. I don't like that idea, Joker versus Harley, because I think they're going to take the criticisms that Suicide Squad had with having them too lovey-dovey. They're going to be sort of at odds. I don't want to see that at all. I don't want to see that at all. That is a complete, feminism of what the concept is. The character is supposed to be lovesick over the Joker, and even though he's sort of a louse, quite frankly. And so that is the concept you want to stick to. You don't want to change it to now she's going to get even with him or put him in a pinch and I don't know, put him in a bind. I don't know what the heck it would be. But so far, the word on that movie is Glenn Ficarra and John Requa were in talks to write and direct. So see in a Birds of Prey movie. This is exciting. The Birds of Prey, of course, had a short-lived TV show. I don't know what are the last 5 episodes. I think I might have seen one. I don't even think I saw one. It was very brief. It was from the makers of Smallville, which kind of was the problem. I was never very interested in that world, and then when they sort of rebooted that CW universe to what we have now, that's when I got more interested. But let me know what you think in the comments below about the Birds of Prey movie. What you want to see, what you don't want to see, what characters you want in it. Very exciting times. Okay, all right, so we've got some television news now, some television news to report. Uh, First off, for Marvel, we're still eagerly, if Inhumans is getting a second season. It was a very controversial show. People basically either hated it or let's put it that way. And we have reports so far from Channing Dungey, ABC's president, that said Inhumans didn't perform for us at the level that we would have wanted. We haven't made any official decision yet about what we're going to pick up in May, but I will say that the numbers, unfortunately, were less exciting for us than we hoped they would be. So, in other words, don't be surprised if this gets canceled. Frankly, they had a much shorter, finger trigger. They had a much shorter leash on Agent Carter season 2. They had an itchy trigger finger there, and they deprived us of any further Agent Carter seasons, which disappointed me. I thought the second season was pretty good. I enjoyed it a lot, and I enjoyed it more than I enjoyed the Inhumans. But see, the Inhumans, they cheaped it out, and they have no one to blame but themselves. See, but the question is now that since Disney has Fox and has the X-Men, do they really even need the Inhumans anymore? Their own X-Men thing, which they already kind of have set up with the Gifted. Uh, but they're gonna, do an X-Men show on the cheap. I don't know. The Gifted is playing it, wisely as life after the X-Men. The and the expensive jets and you know, but you could still do that because Disney has all the money in the world. So what do you think? Would you feel disappointed if Inhumans goes the way of Agent Carter? Should they come back and try to make a better season like I've been saying? I think that the pieces are all there to make a better second season. I say try another season. Of course, if they fail miserably, just move on. But I think that I hate when there's wasted potential, and I think there's potential for the show to actually do well if they actually do a Inhumans show and not do this kind of hybrid crap that they were doing. Getting rid of Medusa's hair in the first episode, and Black Bolt never wearing a mask, and the rest of the family tooling around Hawaii. I don't know. I don't know. All right, so let me know what you think about the Inhumans. We've got more TV news. This time on the DC side of the ledger, we have tomorrow has announced that Kid Flash is going to be a member of the team. Now, I've been saying this all along that I think Kid Flash would be better served on Legends. Of course, he would be even better served in Titans, but seeing as how Titans kind of going to be its own thing, I don't think it's going to be connected to the CW verse. I doubt they were going to use him there. So in that case, it's better to use him here. But he's useless on the Flash. I've been saying that all along. Whenever you have two speedsters, one of them is irrelevant. And I always thought that it would work better maybe if, like, say on the 90s Flash show where you have sort of an older, more experienced Flash. In this case, Barry Allen isn't much older than Wally West. Manner, Barry isn't much more experienced than Wally West. I mean, he's got 2 years of flashing under his belt term. Uh, 2 years more experience than Wally, and it just doesn't make for a junior partner to the hero concept. So you got to do something else with Wally, and I think Agent Legends of Tomorrow is made to order for him. Uh, I don't know if the plans are going to be to keep him on full time. They were saying after Firestorm left the show, Victor Garber left, and of course, Franz Drama possibly had to leave because of that. And they said there was going to be a replacement that was already known to viewers. And apparently, they already knew this replacement was going to be Wally West. And, that's fine because uh, I thought Wally West was going to be a proper replacement for Firestorm as it is. Okay, so I got the quote here from Phil Kilmer, the executive producer of Legends of Tomorrow. He says, "We loved working with Keenan in our series premiere because he was in the original season premiere of the season." Back to the quote. The episode in which we learned that in between seasons 2 and 3, he had been fighting crime in Central City with Nick Zano's Nate Haywood. So when his character stepped away from Flash to go on walkabout after being dumped and feeling somewhat estranged from his family and team, we knew that Wally West would fit in perfectly on Legends. So yeah, that's the way they're gonna go. It looks like with on Legends, and let me know what you think. We've got someone in the chat room here. Ace Peter, hi, nice to see you, and thank you for joining the show. Uh, we're gonna take a look now at our feature story. I think this is our last story of the night. Let's take a look. Uh, it's not our last story, but main story here. We're gonna take a look at the Flash, the solo Flash movie, the comprehensive look at the solo Flash movie. Now we're going to take it from the very beginning when it was first announced up until now. The ride. Let me tell you. Let me tell you. All right, so I've got a little appropriate theme music. I'm just going to try to get through this as fast as possible. But here we go. All right, you ready? On your mark, get set, let's go. The Flashpoint story. October 2014, Ezra Miller is announced as the Flash, set to appear in Batman v Superman, with an appearance in the Justice League film and a solo movie due out in 2018. April 2015, directors Lord and Miller work on the script for WB's untitled Flash picture with a possible option to direct. Those plans fall through, however, when they take the gig directing Disney's Solo, a Star Wars story. Those plans also fall through when they're unceremoniously fired by Lucasfilm during shooting. Next, Seth Grahame-Smith took on the project as director and reworked the script before leaving due to creative differences in April of 2016. Director Rick Famuyiwa joined and reportedly cast Percy Clemens as Iris West and Billy Crudup as Henry Allen. October 2016, saying, "When I was approached by Warner Brothers and DC about the possibility of directing The Flash, I was excited about the opportunity to enter this amazing world of characters that I loved growing up, and still do to this day. I was also excited to work with Ezra Miller, who is a phenomenal young actor. I pitched a version of the film in line with my voice, humor, and heart. While it's disappointing that we couldn't come together creatively on the project, I remain grateful for the opportunity. I will continue to look for opportunities to tell stories that speak to a fresh, generational, topical, and multicultural point of view. I wish Warner Brothers, DC, John Berg, Jeff Johns, and Ezra Miller all the best as they continue their journey into the Speed Force." Then, the studio decided to redo the entire project, dumping Seth Grahame-Smith's reworking of Lord and Miller's script by hiring Joby Harold to craft a page one rewrite of the script. The film is now titled Flashpoint, based on Jeff Johns' story, The Flashpoint Paradox. Next, we find Ben Affleck was approached to direct Flashpoint, but he turned it down. Now, it's been just announced this past week that John Francis Daly and Jonathan Goldstein, previously writing Spider-Man Homecoming, have joined as co-directors. All right, so a lot of people are going nuts about this because Steen and Daly are comedy writers, and a lot of people are afraid that's the direction they're going to take it in, making this project an even more troubled and complex issue than it's already been in the past, being out directors. But I have to think that, seeing as how Ben Affleck was approached for the film, I can't believe that they were approaching him with a comedy. Now remember, this is the same script that they hired Joby Harold to rework from the original incarnation that they had under Lord and Miller. So I find it hard to believe they're going to approach Ben Affleck with just an all-out, broad comedy farce. This is probably going to be maybe in the vein of Justice League, but probably not quite as broad comedy. I don't know. I don't feel as quite as you know pessimistic about this film as I suppose others do, but it's kind of a difficult situation that we find ourselves in with this film. It's been one wild and crazy ride, and with apologies there to Benny Hill using his theme. That's of course the famous Yaki sax. But yeah, it's just crazy. I don't know what's going to become of the movie under these two guys. Uh, I'm reminded that the Russo brothers that directed two fantastic Captain America movies and are now in the process of directing two supposedly fantastic Avengers movies were also comedy directors. So it doesn't necessarily mean that this is a disaster waiting to happen. But it certainly doesn't look that promising. All right, so let me know what you think about the Flashpoint film, any of the past incarnations of this Flash film. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Before we wrap it up, I want to say thank you for joining us, but we've got one final story here, and it's something completely different, but I was happy to hear about it. Apparently, they are going to bring back. Whoa, what has just happened there? I must have hit the wrong button. That looks like something from the Last Jedi. Um, where was I? Okay. Uh, Hulu is bringing back the Animaniacs. They will be returning with baloney in their slacks, as be the case, and they are also uh, going to bring back Pinky and the Brain to make appearances in each episode. It's already gotten a 2-season straight to series order. So Hulu is already settled on this. They doubled down on it. They got 2 seasons worth. I've always said, when are they going to do something with the Animaniacs? The Animaniacs is a great property. I think we all grew up with them. And, it was that classic Warner Brothers style from the 30s. It was like crazy madcap humor with, crazy characters, spoofing the Hollywood of their time. It was the 90s, and they even had a little political humor in there too, of course, with Bill Clinton being the president at the time. And it was also used for education. A lot of us know our state capitals from you know Wacko's America and Yakko's World, whatever that one was called, where he countries in the world. Updated now at this point. I'm sure they probably will. But let me know what you think about this. You like to see the idea of the Animaniacs coming back? They're saying something, calling it a reboot. I don't know if this should be a reboot. I mean, can't they just pick up where they left off? It's animation. You don't really have the character's age. You don't really have. It's not really like it was, too much a product of its time. Uh, but I kind of worry about the concept of it being a reboot. But this is what I always wanted. I mean, I always wanted to see them bring back the Animaniacs and just do new episodes. And I don't understand why they don't do that with Batman the Animated Series, not to mention a bunch of other series. But seeing as how that was a landmark series that was so popular, I find it hard to believe that no one's come up with the idea yet of just doing straight out further seasons of Batman the Animated Series or Superman the Animated Series or Justice League. Just pick one of those shows and just pick up where they left off, because you can do it. The actors aren't going to age too much. They're voice acting. They're not having to be, you know, push-ups and stuff. And we could have such great continuations of these series rather than just getting one movie that's loosely tied to the old series every couple of years. I mean, we got Public Enemies. Mm, I don't think that Supergirl one was supposed to be from that uh, timeline, even though it did have Kevin Conroy's voice. But anyway, and of course we have the Batman meets Harley Quinn or whatever. So who knows? This might be the way to go if you can have a successful, you know, second running of Animaniacs. Bring back Batman the animated series. Bring back Superman the animated series. Bring back Justice League the animated series. I'd be down for all of them. And I wouldn't even stop there. I'd love to see Spider-Man the animated series from the '90s come back, bringing back Young Justice, which I liked, even though I don't know if I would say I was a huge fan of it. But that was sort of like the spiritual successor to Justice League, Young Justice. It was sort of like, I like to close my eyes and pretend that that was what happened after Justice League Unlimited. But who knows? All right, so let me know what you think in the comments below about any of the stories we've covered today. Uh, do you think the Animaniacs is going to be good? In the modern day here. I don't know. Well, how can they ruin it is what I'm worried about. What are they going to do to like take the edge off and make it even more politically correct than it was? Because in the '90s things were kind of politically correct even back then, but making it really politically correct for these days, I don't know. It's possible. It's very possible. That's what worries me. All right, so thank you for joining me here for our Torch News Roundup number 76. That's the spirit. And we will try to see you again on Saturday, on the only way to spend your Saturday, on Johnny Torch Live. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. I need all the help I can get. And we'll have more fun next time. Also, check out my comic, The Adventures of Bullets Bourbon. You'll find the link in the description below. You'll also find the link to my Twitter page. A bunch of polls I've done recently. You can hear about them in the last episode. I'm not going to revisit that right now, but the polls are still up, I think, for the next couple of days, the next 2 or 3 days, if I remember correctly, so you can still vote on them. The what superhero from the '30s would you like to see get the big screen treatment? We've got two different polls on that. One comic and sci-fi oriented, and the other comic oriented. So be sure to check that out. They always say hit the bell for notifications. I guess you hit the bell for notifications. I've never hit the bell for notifications. I don't really know what that does. I guess my show in your feed, so to speak. So definitely do that if that's what they all tell you to do. So thank you for joining us, and let me remind you once again, this was Johnny Torch, reminding you to keep that flame burning brightly. Do you hear? Flame burning brightly. And I'll be with you again real soon.